You ever get that moment where you're scrolling through a sea of best picture quality TVs, see the glossy showroom shots, and think, this is it, my living room's finally going to feel like a cinema? Then the box arrives, you hook it up, and the picture looks, well, a little flat, the blacks look more like dark gray, and the room light seems to wash everything out. I've been there, and it's the exact frustration that made me dive deep into the LG 55-inch class OLED evo AI 4K C5 series before I hit record. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. My goal here is to walk you through the real-world experience so you can decide whether this TV is worth the hype or just another pretty picture that fumbles when the lights go on. First off, let's talk about the biggest myth people run into: OLED is only for dark rooms. That used to be true for early panels, but LG's brightness booster and Bright Room Ready tech claim to push the luminance high enough for daytime viewing. In my own apartment, where the windows let in a solid 800 lux of sunlight, the C5 still manages a respectable peak brightness that keeps HDR highlights from turning into a milky wash. The upshot is you don't have to black out the room every time you watch a blockbuster. Still, the panel isn't as bright as a top-end LED backlit QLED, so if you're planning to mount this in a sun-drenched family room with a TV wall that faces a west-facing window, you might still notice some loss of punch in the brightest scenes. What really sets this model apart is the Alpha 9 AI processor Gen 8. It's not just a marketing buzzword, the AI upscaling works noticeably when you throw a 1080p Blu-ray onto the screen. The processor analyzes edges and texture, smoothing out pixelation without turning the image into a plastic look. I tested it with an old sports documentary that was originally mastered in 720p. After the AI upscale, the motion felt smoother, and the details in the crowd's jerseys held up surprisingly well. That's a big win for anyone who still watches a lot of legacy content or streams from services that don't always deliver native 4K. Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos are baked right into the system, and they're not just checkboxes. Watching a recent Netflix release that supports both, the colors exploded with the kind of depth you'd expect from a high-end home theater setup. The Atmos speakers, while not a substitute for a dedicated sound system, manage to create a sense of directionality that pulls you into the scene. If you're the type who watches movies on a Saturday night and wants the sound to feel immersive without adding a soundbar, you'll appreciate this built-in capability. Now, let's talk about the practical side of daily use. The TV's smart platform is LG's WebOS, which has evolved into a fairly intuitive layout. You can pull up your favorite streaming apps with a single tap, and the AI recommendation bar learns what you watch, surfacing new titles you might actually want. Voice control is built in via Alexa, so you can say, "Alexa, pause the movie" without reaching for a remote. The remote itself is a bit of a love-hate relationship. The scroll wheel feels nice for quick volume tweaks, but the button layout can be confusing at first. After a couple of days of use, I got the hang of it, but if you're looking for a super minimal remote experience, you might need to get a third-party universal remote. Gaming is another arena where the C5 shines. LG markets it as ultimate gaming, and that's not just hype. The panel supports a 120Hz refresh rate with low input lag around 10 milliseconds measured with a standard game controller. I ran a fast-paced shooter on a next-gen console, and there was no noticeable ghosting or blur, even during rapid camera pans. The inclusion of HDMI 2.1 ports means you can enable variable refresh rate, VRR, and auto low latency mode, ALLM, straight out of the box, which is a huge plus for anyone who wants a console-first TV without buying an extra HDMI switch. Who should buy this? If you're a cinephile who values deep blacks, accurate colors, and wants a TV that can handle both HDR movies and older content without looking washed out, the C5 is a solid match. It also works well for gamers who need a responsive panel and don't want to invest in a separate monitor. Families that stream a lot of Netflix, Disney+, or Amazon Prime will benefit from the AI upscaling and the smooth WebOS interface. The price point for a 55-inch OLED is still premium, but when you weigh it against the cost of a separate sound system and the fact that you get a built-in Atmos experience, the value starts to make sense. Who should skip it? First, anyone who lives in a room that's essentially a glass house with relentless sunlight will still struggle to see the full HDR range. In that scenario, a high-brightness QLED or mini LED might serve you better. Second, if you're on a tight budget and